Capital doesn't move because of pitch decks. It moves because of trust, positioning, and the right relationships built over time. Today's guest, Josh Wilson, has operated on both sides of the investment table as an investment banker, a real estate operator, and now as a capital markets growth advisor, working with family offices, private equity, and venture firms, institutional investors, and founders. He's helped scale media platforms into top tier ranking facilities, facilitated hundreds of millions in real estate referrals, and led investor relations on real messy deals, not theory. This conversation is about how capital actually flows and how to position yourself inside that flow. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Mustafa, what an honor, a pleasure. Just the other day, we were riding around downtown New Jersey, and here we are doing an interview together, man. How this relationship is forming, I'm grateful for it. Thank you for your time, man.
No, you're too kind. It's going to be a fun ride, I can tell already. So Josh, help us dive in, help us understand what you do today and how you got here.
Yeah. So how I got here is a complete shit show, but I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm doing today. If you ask my wife, we've been married 16 years. If you ask my wife, what does Josh do? She's like, I think he has a podcast. I don't really know what he does, but as long as the bills are paid and he's making money, she just doesn't know. And it took me a long time to figure out what it is I do, because I, like you, have had a lot of life pivots and I've had to explore a lot of things, because I've tried the traditional education route, the traditional, go to school, get the degree, do all these things. And it didn't work for me. I've worked in government. I've worked in construction. I've wrestled alligators professionally. I'm a real estate broker, investment banker, and I've just done a lot of things. All right. So what I do is I'm in investor relations. I do strategy, I consult, and I help investors have relationships with operators and deal makers. Right. So I've built, in this ecosystem, I've helped build, more than 20 podcast shows, YouTube shows, and I've sold 2 of them. I've conducted about 2,000 interviews. So through that time, I've had a lot of conversations with investors, ranging from first-time investor, retail investor, to top tier institutional investor, family office, right? So professional investors. So I've hopefully gained some wisdom from them. And I've learned that they too are humans and people, and they do business with people they know, like, and trust. And, now I just kind of play as an investment banker and as real estate broker. I help people facilitate conversations, relationships, and put deals together. That's the joy of my life. I love doing that.
So Josh, help us unpack this a little bit if you don't mind. I feel like you started by saying, the traditional process is dead or broken. But also I think you did start with the traditional path. So help us understand how you realized it was broken. And most people listening to this, most people we interact with, most, retail investors, the average investor is in that traditional path. So is it, broken, or does it just not work for maybe you and I? Help me kind of unpack that whole quandary.
Man, that's a good question. Is it broken, or does it not work for just you and me? So I think the only experience I have is my own experience. So let's just say it's broken for me. All right. Because I can't speak for anyone else. Growing up on the construction site with my dad, let's just use the simplest example here. I grew up on a construction site digging ditches. I got my PhD, post hole digger. I dug holes, right? My job was to break stuff as the demo guy when we were renovating a kitchen or digging holes. I was strong, not the smartest guy, and I couldn't paint a straight line. So anything with details or precision, my dad wouldn't have me do. It took me a while. It took my dad actually a while to realize, don't ask Josh to paint, because I would paint and it would get paint on the floor, the ceiling, the windows, and it would spend more time cleaning up than it was to apply. So, my dad spent a ton of time trying to get me to become a good painter. Josh, pay attention to the details. Josh, cut a straight line. Josh, measure twice, cut once. And no matter how hard I tried, and I really tried my hardest, I just wasn't that guy. He was a precision cut. He could cut a straight line without a line, without a chalk line or anything like that. So early on, I tried my hardest to offset my weaknesses. I tried my hardest to become good at those details, good at those processes, good at those things. And what happened is I felt that I was always off. I lost joy. I lost energy. It took me 4 times longer than anybody else to do certain tasks. And it was really a life drain. And I wasn't successful at doing it. And I'd have to go back and do it. My dad was a, Vietnam vet, pretty badass dude. I'd have to go back and do it 4 to 5 times until it was right. Truth of the matter is it was never right. We just ran out of time and he didn't want to pay me, continued. So I felt that there was something wrong with me. Why can't I do this? So I wanted to go, we won't get too much into what I wanted to do with my life, but I think the point of the matter is I went to school, then after high school, I went to get my bachelor's degree and I studied, I first wanted to be a doctor, but I was like, man, I really don't like this. Then I got my bachelor's degree. I wanted to get out in the world of business. I became a real estate agent really early because I hated working with my dad. I loved my dad, just hated working on the business end of a shovel. I saw these people driving around Lexuses, putting for sale signs in the front yard, driving off, and we were doing all the hard work in Florida, right? In the hot sun, floating trusses and doing roofing. It sucked. So, I went down this route of education, real estate, and I went down this path and I tried really hard to be a real estate agent and I sucked at it. I was terrible at it. You had to learn how to fill out contracts. You had to learn to follow up on people. You had to learn all of these things that they said make a good real estate agent, and it didn't work. So here I am. I've got my bachelor's degree. I'm a young real estate agent and I'm failing. I had to have, 2 to 3 jobs to pay for my one job. So I think that's when I really discovered like, man, I don't know my fit in this world. I don't know where I belong, but I know what I'm doing isn't working. So there we are. That's where
And
I think it got broken. And I'm now super big in debt because of all my school debt,
I love it, Josh. I love the authenticity. I love the clarity. I love the comfort with which you're able to tell us your story. Because really, this is just like, chapter one. And chapter one for a lot of people is realizing I don't know where I belong. And I don't know, Josh, at least I know my perspective, but I'm curious to kind of hear your perspective. How did you feel when you realized you didn't know where you belong?
People say I think a lot of people go through midlife crisis. Their mom and dad tells them you should be a doctor, right? So they go and they get all this school and then they start making money and then they have wife and kids. And then one day they wake up and they've achieved, air quote, achieved something. And they realize like, I don't even like doing this. Why am I doing this? Because mom and dad told me to, or because this was a part of my, in construction, my dad did construction. So it was assumed that I would do construction, take over the family business or something like that. But what if we don't like what other people have planned for our lives? And, feeling that failure, constant failure, and I couldn't make ends meet, right? So I'm like constantly struggling financially. No matter how hard I worked, I just felt like I was broken, right? I felt like I didn't, normal people were like, hey, why don't you just do this? And when they said it, they were like speaking Spanish to me. And I couldn't no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't create the systems or the processes or follow the common path. And that was the pivot, if you look at my LinkedIn, for example, and scroll down, I keep it all there so people can see. You'll see more jobs, more pivots, more companies, more failures than I think anybody I've ever met. But I do that because, I believe I'm supposed to help people. The only way to help people is to show them what you've gone through, your own testimony, I guess you would say. So yeah, man, it hurt, man. So I've had probably 4 midlife crises trying to figure out who I am and what am I supposed to do with my life. I hated that question. What do you want to be when you grow up? I hated that because I didn't know. I wanted to be everything. I wanted to do a lot. So that sucked, man. I thought about killing myself. That's how bad it hurt, bro. Is when you don't know your fit or the value you offer to the world or who you serve. I'm telling you, man, life feels meaningless and I wanted to end it. So how bad did it suck? Sucks.
Yeah, and that's so deep, Josh. And I want to understand, from your perspective, for all of us as well, where are you supposed to go to answer this question? Because it feels like we're subconsciously primed that college will answer this question, and I don't think it does. So I want to understand from your perspective, what do you think?
Yeah. Philosophically, I believe we go to our belief systems. Whatever your belief systems are, I think everything starts with your belief system. What do you believe about this world? Some people believe nothing. Some people believe that there's a God. Some people believe that there's this or that. Whatever your belief systems are, I think that the belief systems set the foundations for our core values, and then our actions that are built upon the core values. And then sometimes we stack on that our desires and our passions attached with the things that we like doing and that are good at. So we start kind of like building this building block. But I think people build it like upside down and they spend their life chasing things rather than like, why am I here? I think that's a good question, right? Why the heck am I here? And then we could build upon that to get to some better answers. If you want good answers, you have to ask good questions. So like I started like really digging deep into these things and trying to figure out, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And, like I discovered some things and now I build upon that. And it didn't give me, correct answers right away. It took me probably 12 years to kind of guide me to where I am today. And I think I'm closer than I've ever been. And I'm joyful. I'm happy. I'm helping a lot of people. I feel in the right spot. It's producing results for me, my family, and the people that I serve. So I think I'm close, but it's going to be a lifetime journey, man. I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, I'm sure.
I love that, Josh. I feel like, a couple minutes ago you were getting really real with us and you're uncovering the different challenges that you're facing and how difficult it can be. And I want to dive deeper there, Josh, for a second. But before I go there, I want to just talk to the audience for a second and say if you're appreciating the conversation with Josh, if it's adding genuine value for you, if it's helping you think differently about where you are on your journey. Because on social media, most podcasts, you see like everyone's made it and everyone's amazing and you can get rich in 5 seconds. I think, or at least I hope, in our conversation with Josh today, we'll uncover that that's not the reality of life. So if you're enjoying this episode, consider hitting the like button, consider hitting the subscribe button, and more importantly, consider sharing it with a friend who really needs to hear this, but maybe you're not in a position to say it to them yourself. So Josh, you mentioned how challenging it was. You mentioned how you questioned whether it made sense to live, which is a very deep question that not everyone realizes they're going through, in my humble opinion. How did you build the resilience to continue trying different things and to continue trying to, ultimately grow 1% every day?
It's a good question. When I discovered that I had some level of purpose in life, right? That purpose, call it a calling, a mission, a desire, whatever you call it. Like I had something that I was aiming towards, and it was strong enough, more powerful enough to keep me kind of moving forward. Plus, like there's been times where I just had no other option, right? I have a wife and 3 beautiful kids, and like I can't imagine just giving up. Like the reason I didn't jump is I don't know if my daughter was born yet or on the way, but I couldn't imagine her like learning about me from someone else and them saying like your dad was a good dude or a bad dude or whatever they would say. It doesn't matter. Like I didn't want to do that to my kids. So like selfishly I wanted to jump off that bridge, but like I loved my daughter and my wife more than I hated myself, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a
Right?
lot of sense. And I'm sure it's hard in that moment and even leading up to that moment and even after that moment. I'm sure it's very hard to come to terms with what was going on. But maybe Josh, you can help if you feel comfortable, you can share that purpose. Was it family? Was it something else? What was strong enough to kind of drive you to say like, look, life is difficult, but it will get better?
Yeah, for sure. So sometimes like I'm a visionary, right? Like that's when I discovered that there's like this thing called visionary. And then there's like this other group of people called integrators. That's from a book called Rocket Fuel, like really smart people wrote this. And there's like, hey, there's 2 kind of types of people, visionary and integrator. And then there's another book called E-Myth Revisited, where there's like, oh, there's actually 3 types of people. There's the visionary leader, there's the manager, and then there's the technician. Like you may fit in one of these categories more naturally than others. So when I started like learning a little bit about me, I kind of found my fit a little bit more and I started connecting with people similar to me. But when it comes to being a visionary, like I see 10 years into the future and I'm, like sometimes I'm too far off too soon, if that makes sense, because I didn't have enough capital. I didn't have enough runway. I didn't plan, properly. So sometimes like the hope that gets you going is you have to bring it way back to what do I have today? What am I grateful for today? And I was grateful that I had a wife. And I was, even though like we were really struggling, we were fighting together, like against each other. We were like struggling financially and we had a baby, like throw all of those things in the mix. I just cashed out my government pension to build a fitness technology. So like I went all in. I'm the kind of guy who goes all in, and it failed miserably. So like I felt worthless, but like my love for them kept me going. Like I had to. I'm not going to not provide for my wife and my kids, no matter how hard I had to try, So like I just kept on pushing for them. And then as you know, 10 years later, 15 years later from that story, 12 years later from that story, as you start to get closer to the mission, the vision, it gets more clear, you get more gas in the engine, and the past things that you overcome help you propel forward, if that makes sense. So what I'm trying to get to is sometimes you have to, if you're that scared, you're that hurt, you're that fearful, whatever the case may be, sometimes you have to really narrow your focus and go, I'm grateful that I have air in my lungs. I'm thankful that I have blood in my veins. I'm thankful that I have a friend to talk to, Mustafa. I'm grateful that I have, a family. I'm grateful for teams. I'm grateful for a friend that texts me, right? Whatever it is, and you got to hold on to that. And then when you get more clarity, that vision expands, I think.
And I'm sure in those moments it's so hard to think like that. It's so hard. Like when all your thoughts are negative, it's so hard to find that one positive thing in life and to really scale back to say, hey, like I like the air in the lungs and the blood in the veins. But Josh, as you look back at that, we're talking about 12 years ago, right? You were experiencing all this, you made a decision to continue. What was that first big or small win that laid the foundation for everything to change?
Yeah. So I got a job and I learned the psychology of why people buy things, why people say yes to offers. So I thought I was pretty smart. I thought I was a good sales guy. I read a lot. I've read a ton of books. I got my bachelor's degree and I thought I was a smart dude. I was a firefighter paramedic and, like I have a lot of schooling. But for the life of me, I couldn't get a job when my business failed, my fitness technology, it failed. I couldn't get a job. It was really hard and I was desperate. I was working on the back of a moving truck, lifting up heavy stuff, and it was tough. So I got an opportunity. I got a job. I was working at a cold calling, research institute, essentially, where I called 100 businesses a day with a script, and I'd find out, like, I'd change. They would have us change one small component of it, and they would try to figure out why people say yes to online offers or to business offers or to phone calls. So, like, I'm sitting there I hated it, calling 100 people a day, getting rejected, kicked in the teeth, kicked in the nut, like all day long. But that taught me, I advanced in that company, and it taught me a lot about the human psychology and why people say yes to offers. I took that, and that was that was the first big win in my life. Now, I was getting paid terrible. If my boss is listening, yeah, you paid me terribly, but I'm so grateful that I learned more there than in my bachelor's degree, in all of my real estate experience and all of that. We could go through real estate experience later on if you'd like to, but like I learned more in those phone calls and those pitches and the laboratory, they called it. I learned more there than I've ever learned in my life about business and about sales. It was awesome.
So, Josh, I want to spend some time here because I want to understand a couple of different things. At that point in time, it feels like you've been through a lot of experiences. You worked for your dad, you went to college, you worked in some government job, you ran your own business. Was it this opportunity that changed everything? Or was it you maximizing this opportunity and you being in the right frame of mind? Like, help me understand things from your perspective because this was just another job that you hated, from my
Yeah.
understanding. So, help me kind of fill in the gaps because I do think that there's so many lessons here for everybody because this was not the dream job,
Yeah,
but you
no, it
made
was.
it, it felt like you squeezed out all of the value to
Mhm.
eventually get the dream job. So, I want to understand, Josh, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. I think the pivot point was me betting on myself. So I was a firefighter medic working for a local city, city of Ocala Fire Rescue, 2135 boys. Hello, I love you. When I was working for the government, the fire rescue, I ran a landscaping company. I taught defensive tactics at the college, and I did real estate. Right now, in real estate, I've done millions of dollars worth of real estate in the past, but I still failed miserably when the market crashed on me. But when I cashed out my government pension, and it wasn't huge, but I bet it all on me to build that fitness technology. That was the kind of that turning point. I bet on myself. I didn't, it failed, but that took me on a journey, and then I got that job. So I already experienced a lot, and I tried hard, but, and I read all the books and I taught myself, all sorts of stuff to get to that point about building and scaling business as a startup. So that was the turning point, is the betting on myself, believing in myself, even though it failed. That was the best like pivot point. Now it took a decade to see the fruits of it because it eventually got me into venture capital. and I got to sit with LPs and GPs, and I got to hear the pitches on both sides, and I got to see what fundraising looks like from, high net worth individuals, accredited investors, and institutional investors. Like, I got to see it. I got to sit in the car. I got to see people pitch them all day long. And I'm like, oh, that's why people were saying no to me all the time. So like, but if I never would have took a bet on myself, then none of this would have been realized. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Josh, it's very enlightening. So I want to kind of circle back to the Cold Calling Research Institute. It felt like you spent time learning why people say yes. So from your perspective, help us understand the psychology, the dark psychology, however you would, phrase it. Why do people say yes?
There's a scientific formula that we won't go through the full thing. It's called a heuristic. It was created by my mentor, or mastered by my mentor, Dr. Flint McLaughlin. I worked in his lab. That was then applied to the world of the internet. And this was the terminology is called conversion rate optimization, how to get more people to say yes to an offer, right? So I'm in the beginning stages of this, like conversion rate optimization, and they have me on phone calls all day. Then we take these experiments and we put them online so we could test it. We run ads, and we're like testing human psychology. People think it's just a website, but for us, it was like an experiment to find out why people are saying yes. So in the formula, the most important thing, absolute most important thing, we always look at as the seller, as the operator, the real estate fund or whatever, or the startup or the company that needs money. We're always looking through the lens of what do we need, right? And we're like, okay, we need $100 million to build out this next project. So we're looking at the world of our offers, our marketing, through the lens of what we need. And that doesn't fall on anybody well. If we convert our thinking to what does someone, who do I want to work with out there and what do they want? So like, who wants what I have to give? If we could figure that out, and then why do they want it? So now we're focused in, they call it an avatar or an ideal partner profile. So we could figure out what kind of investor do I want to work with, right? And then truly, I got to understand them, and I got to say, why do they want what I have to give? It's called motivation. That's the highest coefficient of the psychology of yes, is the human motivation. Why would they invest with me? That motivation is what we need to study. So that's the biggest thing that we should focus on is, when you're talking to someone, who are you? What do you, who are you? What do you do? You build that trust, and then you go, tell me, what do you want? Right? Why? And then they tell you why. And then you go, well, what will that do for you if you get what you want? And then you kind of dig a little bit. And then before you know it, they'll tell you if it's a right fit for you or not. And if you're an honest person, you could say, hey, what you want is not something that I could give you, but let me introduce you to a friend. And I think that's the best investor relations. I think that's the best type of human you want to be. You give, be honest, be transparent, do business with people like and trust, and that you truly can serve. So motivation, human motivation, most powerful thing.
I love it, Josh. I love it. At the same time, while I hear you go through it, it can easily feel annoying. So I want to understand from your perspective, having
Me?
been, no, no, not, I'll explain. I'll elaborate. I'll elaborate. Don't worry.
Okay.
You started as a real estate agent, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's very much like, hey, this property is for sale. Let's sell this property if you're a listing agent. Hey, this guy needs to buy a house and he wants 3 bedrooms, he's saying. Let's find him 3 bedrooms, right? The process of uncovering that buyer psychology can feel annoying. Right? I'm not saying it is annoying or isn't annoying. I'm saying it can feel annoying, right? Depending on an individual's personality, right? The idea of creating an avatar or an ideal client profile can feel annoying. You can say, hey, everyone wants to make money. Everyone wants to live in a house, or everyone wants to own the roof over their head, right? You can make general statements which can feel easier, or you can dive deeper, right? Like even the process of doing all of these calls, cold calling, you mentioned it is annoying, right? Or it can feel annoying, however, you said it. Fundamentally, right, it helped you pick up skills that helped you scale exponentially. So for anyone listening to this, right, and trying to apply it to their own lives of, hey, I sell a product, or my company sells a product and I'm in charge of pushing that product, selling that product, developing that product, etc., why is it worth the hassle of thinking about these questions? You know, who do I want to work with? What do they want? Why do they want it? Why do they want what I have to give? Right? These are like annoying questions because it requires active work from my perspective, Josh. Why is it worth people answering these questions? What benefit do they get?
Do they want to feed their family? Do they want to excel in life? Do they want to have joy in what they do? I tell you, I promise you, man, I've interviewed thousands of people on the podcast. The people who enjoy their job, like they actually like show up and like doing what they do, they have better relationships, they have better marriages, they have better relationships with their kids, they have more joy, they have better energy, they attract better people in their world. They typically have abundance. Now, I'm not an abundance preacher or anything like that, but they typically have extra. And that extra might be extra energy, it might be extra money, it might be extra time. But those kind of people who love what they do, there's a old Saint Irenaeus. He says to work is to pray. It's almost like when you do that, like Collins. We'll reference someone who's more recent. Collins wrote a book, Good to Great. You love doing it. There's a high need for it, and you can make money and do it. That's called the groundhog principle. I'm telling you, like, why would you want to spend time figuring out what people want and how they buy from you? Because you can make money doing it, because you'll find more joy doing it. Or you're just going to beat your head against the wall and get thousands of rejections all day long. And that doesn't feel good. So why do you do it? Well, if you truly believe you're here to serve people, you get to know the people that you're serving and you'll serve them better. That's why you should do it.
I love it, Josh. And I guess the next question that I had written down for you is, does it feel authentic to you? Right? Like, I think the answer is yes, but I want to
Okay.
kind of present a certain framework,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You go in and you're a cold caller and you hate it. And you
Yeah.
learn all these psychological tricks and tips. And you're like, oh, great, I can make money doing this. Let me just kind of outsmart people and get them to say yes when I want them to say yes. Kind of like a very good used car salesman, or a very good, person who's selling ice to Eskimos. It might be the best ice ever and higher quality, and that Eskimo might be like a ice purist. But
Right.
fundamentally, help me understand from your perspective the authenticity, because I feel like authenticity is important for you.
Yeah. I've been in situations where I worked with people who were selling things that I did not believe in or I thought were unethical, and I couldn't work there any longer. Right. So I could never hurt someone else for my own financial benefit. Like that money would be dirty to me and it would hurt my heart, my soul, and ultimately it would leave a rift between me and my relationships. It's not worth it. Money's a tool, but I can't hurt humanity for the sake of money. And to be honest, like sometimes it happens, right? You're in a situation and you don't know that the market was going to crash. Like in 2007, I built $8 million worth of spec homes in 2006, right? Syndicating in a bunch of investors and stuff like that. I didn't know the market was going to crash.
In California, correct?
Florida, in Florida.
In Florida. Okay.
Yeah. So I did no, right. So like what I did hurt people and I felt terrible about that enough where back in 2007, I go kind of like middle finger up. I'm done with capitalism and I just wanted to help people. And that's why I went to go become a firefighter medic. I just wanted to help people. Right. So there's a difference between manipulation, which is getting people to do what you want, and motivation is helping people get what they want. So me trying to be a good human, my goal is to find out what people want. And if I have to offer what they want, it's a perfect value exchange. And my job is to get to know people. And I vet people out. I've told so many people no to, working together because I just knew it wasn't a good fit. And that's hard to do because I'm a people pleaser, man. I want to be liked. I want to be, admired. I want friends. And telling people no is a challenge for me. So for me, there's a difference between manipulation and motivation. I will not manipulate people. So yes, I guess Peter Parker's dad, Spider-Man's uncle or grandfather, with much power comes much responsibility. Not saying I have a lot of power. I'm just saying like with these things, like I could go do a bunch of bad things. I just don't want to. I would prefer to look at my kids in the face and they'd be proud of me. Plus I don't look good in orange. I don't want to wind up in jail. Right. So like, that's why I want to be a guy who lives upright, tries to do the right thing and motivate people, find people who want what I have to offer. Right. And then find a way to help, do business together. And that's the fun journey. And that's worth 100 calls a day. That's worth, knocking on a bunch of doors to find the people who I really am called to serve. And that's fun.
I love it, Josh. I love it. So I'm gonna ask some questions, and they're not intended to land rude, but I'm just gonna go for it, and
Go
we'll
for
see
it.
how it lands.
Yeah.
Right. So for you, Josh, do you feel like it's within your skill set to manipulate people?
I think it's in everyone's skill set, like from early. So yes, Simply, yes. But kids do it all the time. They'll fake cry. They'll pretend to be asleep. They'll, like pretend to be hungry. They'll, whatever the case may be. I think that in human nature, it's in with all of our nature to do that could do bad. We have to choose not to. So yeah, it's definitely in my nature that I don't want to. I try not to. And I have people in my life that create guardrails, like my wife. She tells me, she's like, we were failing. We were going through bankruptcy. So I've been bankrupt, and people can look me up and they will see all of my, past failures on LinkedIn. And they could also look at the bankruptcy report, right? Like it's public record. Like it's very hard to like posture when you have those kind of things. And I'm grateful for those actually, because it creates more trust. I could build relationships with people. But yeah, I think it's in our nature to have the ability to do that. I think we just must choose good.
Yeah, Josh, I think that's very powerful. So the next question would be like, given your skill set, right? Given, working at this cold calling research institute, given all the value you place in learning, growing, and implementing what you learn, can you tell when people are trying to manipulate you?
For sure. Oh, for
Do you
sure.
mind elaborating? Because it was just such a like, there's so much passion behind your answer.
Well, I've been manipulated, like I've been hurt. And it hurt my family, like we've been burnt out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, when you're have to go home and answer to your wife, or see stickers on your door that says, eviction, or when you see like your car's being towed off on the back of a tow truck, like you have the evidence of being burnt by people. And like that feeling that I felt, or that, my wife feels, and the pain that it's caused my family of people that have burnt me or manipulated me, it's I've forgiven them, but it's an everlasting reminder of what to look out for, right? For fake actors, right?
So for people who haven't experienced something like this, Josh, and obviously we would never want anyone to experience something like this, right? What do you look out for today that maybe somebody wouldn't know to look out for, or you yourself didn't know to look out for when it was happening?
So I look for signs of trust. So signs of trust and credibility, proper licensure, proper structure. So for example, I have taken my series, the SIE, then series 79, series 63. I've gone through the process because I've had thousands of people ask me to raise money for them, right? So I'm a investment banker by licensure, right? So there's a lot of people who will do this or that, right? And, like I do it. And I said no to everyone before because I didn't have the proper licensure. And they're like, Josh, but there's ways we can pay you, or there's ways we could work around that. And I'm like, that's fine. But I have friends, because of my network, I have friends that are in pretty high places in the, you know, um, the government and in commission, and, like they're my friends. So like, don't want to put them in a bad situation. So like I got all my licensure, and I work with very, 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 very successful families. And if I'm representing them without the proper licensure or something like that, man, it could blow back on them. So I took the time and took a ton of money, and, I got the proper licensure. So what can you do to see if someone's a good actor or, or not? Check licensure. What licenses do they need? You can also ask for references. Like talk to me about, like, give me 10 references, personal references or professional references. And if they can't produce it, then that's not their mom or dad or best friend, right? Introduce me to someone who maybe something has gone bad in the past, right? So I could introduce you to people that the deal didn't work out and we're still friends. We both lost money and we're still friends, right? Like, so like, I think those are ways that you can verify. And also just listen to that gut, and, like that gut instinct, that little voice, man, pay attention to that. That's called discernment. And that typically will serve you well in your life. Now, if it's fear, ignore it or work through it. But like, if it's like a good gut instinct, like, there's something off, then pay attention to that until it's resolved.
So Josh, let's dive in a little bit. Why do you think listening to your gut is so important? Or what's led you to conclude that your gut is a good thing to listen to? Whichever, question you want to answer.
For sure. I think inside us, we have I think our brains are more powerful than, the computers that we sit in front of or the phones that we play with. So
Or
we are constantly,
ChatGPT.
or chat GPT, right? At least for now. So I think that we accumulate all these data points that, help us, the fear and flight responses and reflexes. Like our brains are gathering all of these data points to protect us and keep us safe. So I think that when we see people who are manipulating us or who are trying to push something on us that might not be a good fit for us, there's a difference between feeling the adrenaline rush of being excited about, making a big purchase, right? And you need that little reassuring to move, to get over to tip the fence from a yes or from a no to a yes, right? That's one thing. But if someone's pushing you towards something and you just feel off about it, like I think that's, thousands of years of human biology being passed down from our family and telling us about things. And we just got to make sure that we're not walking into something with a preconceived bias towards someone or something that might not look like us or sound like us. So I think that there's wisdom and experience from, being open. But I think if you do have a gut instinct, you should talk to someone about it, probably your spouse. My wife has better discernment about people than I do. And I thought that I was really good at reading humans. But like when I started talking to my wife about people, she'd be like, I don't have a good feeling about them. And I'm like, it's okay. And I pushed it and it cost us a couple $100,000. Now I go, hey, babe, what do you think of so-and-so? And she's like, I don't know about business. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you think of them as a person? So like, I really bring my wife in on business decisions. Not everyone, like, do I buy the subscription or not? But like when it comes to big partnerships, I talk to her deeply.
I love that, Josh, because it really resonates with me while also saying that I don't know if I feel comfortable saying my wife is better than me. So I can't agree with you, right? So I have to
Yeah.
think of a question, which
Yeah.
led me to this question. Is it that your wife is better than you, or is it just that she's good in a different way? Imagine two different filters that filter
Yeah.
for different things. You go to your wife when you've concluded someone's not a good fit and might be a good fit, and then of that filtered list, she further filters it for like the best people.
So is she better all around than me? I think she's a beautiful human. I think better
That
at
goes without saying.
yeah. I think better at a lot of things. Like, so she's super introverted. There's no way she would ever knock on a door or make a phone call, cold call. So like, yeah, I'm better at that than I'm better at sales than her. I'm better at um,
So I think I mean
protection,
maybe within the trust curve and within like filtering out scams. Let's talk about that maybe.
discernment. She has
Yeah,
higher
the discernment.
discernment on because she is naturally geared towards fear. Okay. We have 3 kids and she's always thinking that they're going to fall and die, right? Like she's naturally that mother who's afraid of things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, they'll be fine. Even if they do get hurt, I used to be a medic. I know how to put them back together, right? So like my brain is in hope mode and in optimism mode most of the time. So when I see someone, I could see the good. I could see that, she's slightly geared towards pessimism or fear, right? So sometimes and we make a good couple, sometimes I need a little bit of being reined back in and saying, hey, have you thought about this? It's fine. No, you should probably have an agreement in place. All right, babe, I'll go get an agreement. We shook hands. Yeah, but remember that time that so and so hurt us? You're right, babe. Right? So like it should be common sense, but sometimes like that little bit of pessimistic pull is good. And I think that is a good teamwork. And I think companies should have that in place. And usually their internal compliance, their, a CFO or a controller or some type of legal compliance or an operator or an integrator. Like you do want that kind of like, hey, maybe it's not a good idea to, go all in on black. Right? Maybe we should hedge our bet and, put some downside protection. So she's much better at those kind of things than me because I'm optimistic. I think the future looks good. I think that there's, chances to do great things. So she's much better at that than me.
I love that. I love that,
Yeah.
Josh.
And if she's
So
listening, I get some brownie points. Boom. Thank you, Mustafa. You set that one up.
ideally, you're
Yeah.
welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
So Josh, another thing that came up throughout the conversation was the idea of trust. I think I brought in the idea and you mentioned it as well about authenticity. So how do you grow on that trust curve authentically?
Time and trials, right? So that's how you build trust. You have to try, but time and trials, like spend time with people. Love it might, someone told me love is spelled Time. So, like I sometimes it's hard to spend time with certain types of people. It's just is what it is. But, if you love someone and you want to build that trust, you make self-sacrifices to build that trust, to build that relationship. Now, if your relationship with them is just to get a sale, they're going to feel it and they're going to know it, right? Deep down in their gut, they know it. And I would say that that's more manipulative than it is, good. Maybe you should either learn to love them or, find people that you want to serve differently.
I love that, Josh. I love that. I think you stated it very eloquently. I'm dyslexic, so when you tell me love is spelled Time, it really confuses me. but it's okay. I appreciate it. I just had to slow down a little bit to process. Um, Josh, I know you mentioned you have three kids. I know you
Yeah.
mentioned the journey that you've been through and how we touched on your actual academic educational journey as well, and how maybe we both believe that the traditional process is dead or broken, or maybe just broken for us. With respect to mentoring your kids and, gearing them for success, whatever it looks like, what are you doing and how are you positioning things?
So each of my kids are completely different than the other, right? So I grew up in a way where my dad, love him, he's now passed away, but like he was my hero, right? Love my dad. We had a really great relationship, tough relationship, but great relationship. My dad tried his hardest to get me to be more like him and out of love. And he didn't have it. He did 1,000 times better than his parents. His parents were not great. So like, I'm grateful that he changed the family history and the family, tree to make it much more positive. But he thought that I should be more like him, right? Josh, you need to do it this way. Right. He didn't understand that people are wired differently. So what I try to do differently, and it's in a loving way, is I want my kids to discover who they are, what their skill sets are, what their desires are, what their passions are, what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are. Help them focus on their strengths, help them focus on their joys, right? And then teach them their personal value proposition. What do they bring to the world that's different, right? If you're trying to be like someone else or trying to be what your parents want you to be, man, you could really kind of have like this identity crisis, or you can really discover who you are and who you are meant to be, and step into some greatness in that journey. So I want to help my kids do that, and that's tough because you see your kid's weakness and you're like, you got to do better at this. You got to do better at this. You got it now. Yes, in school, if you suck at math, you got to get at least a C, right? Like you got to graduate, kid, right? Like that's a bare minimum. Get through high school, right? But when it comes
These get
to like,
degrees.
yeah, that's right. What do you call a doctor with all C's? Doctor, right? It's crazy. That's so funny. C's get degrees. I like that, Mustafa. Like I want to help my kids discover their joy because I spent the first 30 years of my life, maybe 35 years of my life, not knowing that I'm not broken, and that like there is a way for me to spend my days meeting people, like putting deals together, talking about ideas and visions and strategies, and doing stuff together, collaborating and syndicating things and like investing in things. Like there's like that's what I should do. The Pareto principle. That's what I should do with all of my time, right? It's the things like if you ask me to organize details or put in a project management tool or the blah, 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 right? I want to jump off that bridge again, right? Like that's why there's other people who that's their joy. Hire them, work with them, find out a way to partner with them, right? So like that, I think you go much further if you do it like that. So I want to teach my kids it's okay to not be great. You can't be great at all. Be great at a few good things and like find out what like people want to pay you for and then do that really well and have fun doing it.
I love that, Josh. And I feel like it's maybe very different from how we were raised. So, how do you do that for your kids without them going through that despair that you've alluded to?
We got to be careful not to shield them from all trials and tribulations because I want them to also be tough, but I don't want them to lose hope, right? So I guess the best way to do it is to show them by example how they see me waking up. Well, they don't see me waking up, but they know that I was up since 4:30 in the morning working. They see how hard dad works. They saw me go to New Jersey to come visit you guys, right? Like they see me putting in the time, and then I spend time with them and I take for example, my son, he's 8. I look him in the eyes and I go, bro, you're so good at this. He organized one of our drawers for fun. I said, man, look at that, bud. It's so good. You're so good at this organization stuff. And like, man, like I'm really impressed. Here's some money. It's some positive reinforcement. Right. Like he did it for fun. So like, I think it's like proper validation, some reward, but then also like highlighting. And then there's sometimes where I have to tell my daughter, Lily, who's 12, she thinks she's great at everything. Sometimes I have to go, hey, sweetie, you are really good at this. Not so good at this. Let's focus on what you're good at, because if you try to spend your whole life getting better at what you're bad at, you might not get the results you want. Like, for example, she's in volleyball. She's 7th grade. She's 5'4" and she wants to be a spiker. I'm like, sweetie, your dad's 5'8". Like, you're not going to get much taller than me. You spiking, at a college level is probably not going to happen. Let's learn to be a libero. Let's learn to set well. Let's learn to be defensive. Broke her heart a little bit because in her head she wanted to be the girl who could jump over the net and spike. She's a Wilson. It's probably not going to happen. So you do have to kind of help them with reality and refocus in a loving way, but show them back to what they are good at, what they have some skill sets. And I think that's the same thing in management or leadership, right? We should be doing that the same exact thing with the people that we work with.
I love it, Josh. I think you've summarized it quite well. And this whole conversation has really flowed. And I think it really resonates with a lot of people in the sense that people need to hear this, but they don't always know where to get this type of information and this type of authenticity. So, Josh, I wanted to ask you, if somebody's listening to this episode and they wanted to learn more about what you do professionally, learn more about how you help people raise capital, how you structure and build out strategic pipelines for companies that are raising capital, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
The only way your audience is going to get, connect with me is through you. So if people want to chat with me, they have to shoot you a text or an email. They have to give you a freaking 5-star review of your podcast and share it with people. They have to put in the work if they want to connect with your guests, because you're putting in the time, energy, and you're perfecting the art of conversation. So guys, if you want to chat, got to chat with Mustafa first. He's my friend. So he's my ally in this. So talk to him first.
Oh, Josh, I love it. That's how you know that this guy's an expert marketer. And if you meet him in person, it's even the conversations are even better. So, Josh, I mean, I've loved our conversation today, and I feel like what you made clear is that capital doesn't just follow noise; it follows clarity, consistency, and credibility. You've shown even just in your call to action right there, you've shown that relationships are powerful, and how you execute and how you build on those relationships are really important. And when they're aligned, the opportunities compound, not just financially, but also reputationally. Like now, like Joshua, someone you can trust. If you send him a reference, he'll always remember you because of how he positioned that you have to go through Mustafa to connect with Josh. And that's really powerful. So, Josh, I want to thank you not only for coming on the episode today, not only for all the value that you provide to me, but to everybody, because I don't know sometimes if people stop enough to say thank you, right? I want to thank and appreciate how you break down how capital really moves behind the scenes. And if you're listening to this episode and it sharpened your thinking, follow MyFinJourney, like Josh said. Share it with somebody, a founder, a sponsor, an operator, a professional who's serious about raising capital or deploying capital in the right way. Thanks again for joining, guys. I'm Mustafa Ladha, and this is Josh Wilson, and we'll speak to you soon.